Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the second day of Paprika's Open 9, to our MCQ for Mythic Championship Barcelona, and we are going to play standard. Probably 8 rounds. I don't know how many players we got at the moment. However, my name is Piotr,
My name is also Piotr.
but he's a different Piotr, and you should know him because he's also known as Kanister, and he streams a lot. Where?
Well, I am streaming at twitch.tv/canister_mtg.
Hashtag sponsored. Okay, so yesterday we saw a lot of walkers. Yesterday we saw a lot of Commander Dreadhorde. However, Blue-Green Thief won in the end. First round, and we see a friendly face in the booth. And by friendly face, we don't mean Havai because he's kind of dying today. But there is Jędrek. See that stare? Okay, so Jędrek is going to play against Tobias Frank, or Frank Tobias. I don't know.
Well, the naming convention would suggest that
It would.
it's
It would.
Tobias.
Okay, we don't have the deck lists yet, but we will try to get them shortly and provide you with commentary on what is going on and what we can expect. So what do you expect? What decks do you think would work well this weekend? What would you bring?
Well, there's a lot of different decks. This standard format is very wide open. An interesting effect of Fairy Time Raveler, that is a super popular card in this format, is that nobody is actually realistically allowed to play counter spells like Absorb. Absorb is not really a card in this format anymore. That means that people can play with a various swath of different decks with different tools and somewhat expensive sorceries that would not otherwise see much play. For example, Mass Manipulation, as you have said, it had won yesterday's tournament. It would not really be a deck that would be playable too often in Standard. On a similar note, there are recently the Command the Dreadhorde decks are very popular, trying to go over the top by reanimating a whole bunch of Planeswalkers and Wild Growth Walkers alongside Explore creatures. There's also, of course, the always popular Aggro Menace in Mono Red and to lesser extent Mono White aggressive decks, staying fairly similar to how they looked last format before War of the Spark got released. And of course, that's not all. There's a whole bunch of different options for players to pick, like Esper Midrange, Izzet Phoenix, a lot of various options.
Yes, the format is wide open, and that requires players to put a lot of thought into how they build their decks, what cards they choose, and how to build their sideboards. So I am very, very... you couldn't see that, but I'm interested in what that was. Yes. Okay, I'm confused. All right, so we should start very shortly. Of course, the time will be extended by those 3 minutes that we took setting up the stream, so don't worry about that. Everything will end on time. Yep, that's basically it. Let's wait and see what happens.
Yeah, notably this standard format seems to evolve at a much faster pace than the old ones. That's the narrative that everyone seems to believe in, and well, reasonably so, because that indeed seems to be the case. The advent of MTG Arena definitely has a lot to do with that, given that Magic is played online mostly there and not really on Magic Online anymore. Providing no, like, the differences being there's a lot of differences between those two. Like, for example, information is much less accessible for players. It's not possible to get a weekly update of 5.0 deck lists from Magic Online anymore. It's not like as reliable of a source, and you have to scour a little bit harder for those new technologies.
So if you are not using Twitter yet, you definitely should, and you should follow some pros, some more and lesser known pros, because they very often share their deck lists. Also, you can ask them directly questions, and it's a great place to learn about new decks. Also, check the subreddits for various archetypes. That's also a great source of information. Okay, so Jędrek is taking a mulligan. Players receiving their Arcbound Ravager promos. Jędrek's taking a mulligan. From what we saw, he is playing blue-red Phoenix. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it seems like Jędrzej is piloting the blue-red Phoenix build.
And in Tobias's hand, we saw Galta. Is that a card that you would expect today?
Not entirely high on Galta in standard nowadays. It does not. It's not the top end from the green aggro decks that I love
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, given it's being somewhat vulnerable to things like the Fairy Time Raveler being able to bounce its huge body and things like that. But it might be a route to take. It certainly is one that Tobias went with.
So, Pelt Collector drawing first blood in this match. He is going to die to a Lightning Strike.
Kind of a slow start for a Gruul aggressive deck, playing just Pelt Collector on turn 1, not following up with a 2-drop on turn 2. It makes it so that the Galta in Tobias's hand is certainly not going to be easily castable in the future.
Tormenting Voice discards an Arclight Phoenix, a vital point to the strategy of the whole deck. And no third land for Tobias.
Yeah, that's kind of huge. Tobias misses bird land, hits a Lanor Elf. Lanor Elf is going to be vulnerable to things like Shock or similar. I believe there is a Shock present in Jędrzej's hand, so he's probably looking for a 4th land to perform a great sequence. He actually has a 4th land in his hand. I guess I don't see a Shock actually.
Mm-hmm. So Opt scries to the bottom, draws a card.
He's trying to play 3 spells in a turn to resummon his Arclight Phoenix.
And we can see a new addition to the deck in his hand at the moment. Finale of... What is that? Finale of Promise?
Finale of Promise.
Yeah, Finale of Promise. So, one card that allows you to reanimate your Arclight Phoenix. Works pretty great.
I believe Tobias played a promotional version of Steel Leaf Champion.
That's a 5/4.
Haven't seen this one in a while.
Yes, and that's 5 toughness or 5 mana closer to Galta.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong card overall, albeit it does not match that great against Izzet Phoenix, given that Izzet Phoenix is able to play Lava Calls, and is certainly doing so.
So we could see that Jędrzej used the Finale of Promise. He chose X2, chose Lightning Strike and Charter Course, destroyed the Llanowar Elf, and drew 2 cards with Charter Course, discarded a land that he didn't need, and managed to get in for 3 with the reanimated Arclight Phoenix.
Yeah, that was essentially a nice 3-for-1 for Jędrzej.
Now,
Seems like Jędrzej is flooding out a little bit.
yes,
Only has an extra land, a Spell Pierce, and some cards I am not...
I think those are all lands.
somewhat of a precarious position for Jędrzej, but not an unfixable one.
Definitely not, especially given that the opponent hasn't been mounting a lot of pressure. I mean, the 5/4 is a problem.
It is actually kind of scary because you know, if you are in the Jędrzej's position, then your opponent was missing land drops for all the turns so far and was not playing cards. You can deal with some Steel Leaf Champions thanks to Lava Coils and similar, but you cannot deal with a indefinite stream of them. That means that at some point Tobias is going to find his lands, and Jędrzej might be under a lot of pressure to deal with the trouble that Tobias is presenting. As you see, an extra Steel Leaf Champion, not...
It seems very tough.
yeah, double Spell Pierce in Jędrzej's hand does not match too greatly against this card.
So, even though the opponent was on 2 lands, Jędrzej did not manage to punish him for that. So this might be a tough one.
Yeah, Jędrzej is looking to draw something akin to an extra finally. Maybe something like a Charter Course into Lava Coil into finally. That would be able to deal with both Steel Leaf champions.
Thrash or Collision Colossus, that is.
Yeah, we see that Tobias presents a target for Spelldish finally. Jędrzej is certainly happy to be able to use this card.
However, he's at 2, so
He's at 2, but like that would be much scarier had Tobias, had Tobias added a Galda to the board. That would have been supremely more scary.
Yes.
Jędrzej doesn't find anything in the end and is going to concede, go to the sideboarding process.
So how do you fight this? Do you go after the mana dorks? Of course, the lava coals are going to come in, right?
Yes, probably all the lava coils that Jędrzej has available are going to come in. Jędrzej cannot know for sure whether Tobias is equipped with maybe cards like Nullhide Ferox. He's probably not running Recalling Phoenixes and similar, given that Steel Leaf Champion kind of points towards the deck being extremely green heavy, which would suggest that there are no red cards present most likely, as we see in Tobias's deck right now. Jędrzej is going to look for the relevant pieces of removal, try to win with flyers. The plan for him is pretty straightforward and pretty similar to the one that he was trying to perform game 1. Just cantrip, play his lava coils, stop the biggest threats like Steel Leaf champions, and then try to win with flyers.
And on Tobias' side, I think Crawl Harpooners might be things that he's looking for. I don't know how much you're worried about Phoenixes.
Crawl Harpooner is not the perfect weapon to fight Arclight Phoenix, but in all honesty, there's no insane weapons to fight the Arclight Phoenix card in red-green. So like what you're going to do is probably just try to race. Given that your creatures are, well, just bigger, you can definitely try to race and race effectively.
And there is also this Collision Colossus card that he presented in game 1. That is interesting because it's not only a combat trick, but also a removal spell for flyers. So
yeah, it's a pretty low opportunity cost card to leave in your deck to try to fight
a flying strategy.
crackling drakes, which otherwise you could struggle against. We have seen that Tobias mainly just removed a few Galtas from his deck, relying on those a bit less, realizing that the way in which Jędrek is probably going to try to attack in post-board is to have a little bit more removal, which means that it's harder to play Galta, which means that you would be susceptible to getting stuck with it in your hand, which is certainly not a scenario that you want to end up in. So leaving just one or none in your deck is certainly a valid and tested strategy.
Alright, so the players are shuffling up.
One of the downsides of paper Magic.
Yes, on Arena you don't have to wait for this. It just happens magically. And somehow there are always ways that the shuffle can screw you over.
Well, it's not specific to
Of course it's not. It's not.
to either platform.
No. It's not. But it's just how it feels sometimes, you know. There is a greater amount of games that you are able to pump into an hour on Magic Arena, I feel, than on Magic Online, and you are more susceptible to see those situations happen to you. And since we are bound to remember those bad ones more than the good ones, it always feels like, yeah, I always get all the lands.
Exactly, that is how human perception tends to work. That makes it much easier to
draw conclusions which are not always
to
true.
wear your tinfoil hat and prepare to post on a 6,000th page in MTG Arena forums about
Yeah.
how the shuffler is rigged.
Of course. They are choosing how to shuffle based on how much you pay. Of course. Conspiracy. Okay, so we have the confirmation. We are going to play 8 rounds, which means that we have more than 129 players in the tournament. So that is a lot of people. Well, the prizes are great. It's one of a time opportunity to play this kind of tournament in Szczecin. It's the first one in Poland, actually. So we are pretty happy to have you here and have you with us on Twitch and Facebook.
Yeah, both players kept hands that are somewhat slow, it seems. No 1-drop or 2-drop for Tobias. Just going on for turn 3 Mefog Branchwalker, that's really slow. He's probably going to keep this Null Height Ferox on top, because it's a really valuable card, hard for Jędrzej to answer efficiently with just one card.
So the Branchwalker is gonna be met with a shock.
Yeah, it was kind of expected from Jędrzej to have a hand full of removal. Goes for a turn for Ral Storm Conduit. Not a common card that you see in those decks, although a fairly interesting payoff for running a bunch of instant air sorceries. So we are going to see this one in action.
So now he could, if Tobias plays Nullhide Ferox and Jędrzej has Lightning Strike in hand.
Yeah, either
He
Lightning
could-
Strike or Lava Coil with Ral's -2 ability is going to do the job.
So that is pretty good. However, that's not the play this turn. The play,
Tobias goes with his own Planeswalker. Notably, Ral Storm Conduit works pretty well against Planeswalkers too, because its ping ability can target Planeswalkers too.
that is a valid point. And in such a spell-heavy strategy, that's going to be irrelevant.
I'm not too familiar. You see Jędrzej reading the Domri card out loud. I'm not extremely intimately familiar with this one myself.
So it's +2 or +1. It's add a red or green, and the creature you cast with it gains Riot.
Yes, it's a +1 ability.
It's a +1 ability. -3 looks at top 4 cards, and you may put up to 2 creatures, I believe, into your hand. So that's what he's going to do.
Okay.
And the emblem doesn't happen, but I don't remember
The emblem makes a 4/4 beast.
Okay, every
and
turn.
Every end step.
Mhm.
Which notably is every end step and not
Not upkeep.
not each of your end steps.
Mhm.
It like literally works twice per turn.
Yep.
So Jędrzej is going to scry again. Ral is really beefy.
Mhm.
Now Jędrzej is going to be able to kill off the Domri. Domri drew 2 cards, so it's still a pretty good value play for Tobias. But Jędrzej is trying to assemble some traction tools on the battlefield. He has both a Planeswalker and a Flyer. The Flyer is sticky. The Arclight Phoenix is never really going to leave play, given how easy it is for Jędrzej to resurrect that.
Unless
Unless it's getting exiled, so I spoke too soon. Tobias was ready here with a Lava Coil. Jędrzej had a real decision here, whether to use a shock to save his Phoenix, put it into his graveyard, or keep it in play. He chose to let it go, keep shock for removal purposes, knowing about this Gruul Spellbreaker.
So yeah, Gruul Spellbreaker, the follow-up play.
Tobias chooses not to haste the Spellbreaker. Given that Jędrzej can minus Ral and use a simple shock to deal with that creature, I am on the fence with that play.
Triggers as well, so we will get 2 damage total, and I will get 1 spirit and 1 dark illusion. So you are at 18.
Yeah, Jędrzej managed to deal 2 damages. Like again, Ral is pretty interesting. It certainly gives an advantage over time for Jędrzej. Now with Murmuring Mystic, in addition to that, Jędrzej can try to go over the top. His hand is just a land and a Lightning Strike. A land can become very much alive if he draws a Charter Course, Tormenting Voice, any of those type of cards. Lightning Strike is certainly very live too, being able to be copied with Aral, Storm Conduit.
Yeah, Raul seems pretty good so far.
Many of us can play this to prevent Hex growth at the end of turn, right? And you can custom future spells.
So, no gachi music.
Oh yeah. Those are my wonderful viewers from my channel demanding gacha music. There's not going to be gacha music played here. Twitch
Not
chatters.
today. Not today.
You know, we are serious over there. Kinda.
As always.
Yep.
Okay, so Jendrek is going to pay 2 for the Nullhide Ferox ability and try to destroy it with a copied Lightning Strike.
Yeah, a lot of triggers happening. 2 Storm Conduit triggers.
1 Murmuring Mystic trigger.
Yes. So, Yenjay would really hate to see a Collision Colossus, but at the same time, the bird tokens from Murmuring Mystic actually do quite of a good job of blocking that, so it's not too scared. Even if Tobias had a Collision Colossus to give that Nullhide Ferox the crucial 2 toughness, because remember, Tobias was actually able to cast that card at this moment because ENJ activated that Nullhide Ferox ability. You know, even if that had happened, it would not be too scary for ENJ. What's kind of unfortunate for ENJ is the fact that Steel Leaf champion does not care about the bird illusion tokens in the slightest. So ENJ needs to find some action. And you see ENJ ripping a pretty powerful top deck here. Entrancing Melody.
So Entrancing Melody will make it so that ENJ can steal one of Tobias's creatures. He chooses the Nullhide Ferox.
No, he's targeting the...
sorry, the Steel
Steel
Leaf champion. Yes, sorry. Because he couldn't pay for Nullhide Ferox's ability and it's converted mana cost.
Yeah, regardless, it's also just a better card to take, given that Nullhide Ferox is easily chumped by the bird illusion tokens and
Yep.
Steel Leaf is not.
So are we going to see a Galta this turn? I haven't seen it in like a year.
Yeah, I haven't seen a Galta played in a while. It's actually somewhat problematic, although it's going to take 2 attacks to kill ENJ, so he has some real counterplay. Another Steel Leaf champion and a 2-mana Galta.
So that's a lot of power on the board.
Yeah, Galta and Steel Leaf champion alone deal 17 damage. Although, like, notably, it's not enough to kill in one hit, so Jendrek has real counterplay. He might try to outrace Tobias. Yenjay's last card is Sahili. Sublime Artificer.
It generates a token, a 1/1 token every time.
Yes,
cast
that's
a non-creature.
powerful against Nullhide Ferox. That's not as powerful against Steel Leaf champion and Galta, so interesting to see what NJ does here. He is essentially choosing between double blocking with Murmuring Mystic and Steel Leaf champion and trying to play a more fair game where he's going to trade off for the Ferox. He chose to go with that. He also could have chumped the Ferox.
A Lava Coil, the rip from the top.
Lava Coil is really
good.
nice. Yep. He gets to scry with Ral again. It's hard for Tobias to engage in a race with Galta because that allows ENJ to attack for a lot with Steel Leaf champion. There's also the option for ENJ to copy a Steel Leaf champion next turn.
Sure, with the minus ability from
Sahili, Sublime Artificer, turning a Servo into another Steel Leaf champion, which is another a lot of damage.
Also relevant if Jendrek wants to race, those triggers from Ral will add up.
Yeah,
so
they do add up. They do add up. Like Ral dealt like
5 damage.
5, 6 damage.
So that's a lot. And we see a friendly and a familiar face joining the table.
Those are nice pro player tokens. ENJ uses them to serve as servos.
You are his servo now.
Yes, yes, yes. Tobias has a Domri Anarch of Bolas in his hand. It takes me a while to think of the titles of those planeswalkers, given that there are like two versions of many of them in standard right now. It's
The
really
previous one is Chaos Bringer, I think.
Yes, it really adds up.
Yeah.
Domri is able to fight with a single creature, for example, killing the Steel Leaf champion. That opens the door for Tobias to raise.
That's exactly what he does. Galta is at 13-12 now.
The last card in Tobias' hand is also a spell. It's Vivian.
Champion of the Wild.
Exactly. Vivian is not gonna be as impactful.
It gives
It gives vigilance to the
yeah.
creature. No longer relevant given that Steel Leaf champion controlled by Jędrek has been destroyed by Gauta.
Now this is a predicament.
So it seems like Tobias has plus his Vivian, presumably targeting Gauta, Primal Hunger.
So
And now is choosing a target for his Gauta to point towards.
yeah, you can either go for 2-turn kill,
Yes.
or and then you open yourself up to potential kill.
Yeah, you can see how aggressively it attacks.
Very
Jędrek
aggressively.
has a lot of top decks, like an Arclight Phoenix is enough to
Finish the game.
close the door. I have not seen
Draw
what
spells.
Jędrek draw. Goes
That
for his Cry
doesn't
first.
seem like a winning card.
An Arclight Phoenix would be lethal because it would turn the servo into a copy of itself, and then that would add up to enough damages.
Yep.
I guess that's actually not true, given that Galta has reach from Vivian.
Oh yes, she does.
Seems like the card that Jędrek drew was an island,
La Isla Bonita.
which not as bonita
Now.
in this exact moment,
Yeah.
given that Galta has for a hefty 13 points of damages. Which is probably going to be enough to kill Jędrek. Let me use my math skills real quickly. 7 minus 13 equals -6, which equals a dead player.
It's not true. You cannot have -6 fingers. It's there is no such thing as -6. And that is the game. So Tobias, with his Gruul big spells deck, is going to take down this one. We are of course going to chat with him after he gets de-sideboarded and after he takes a breather. Tough loss for Jędrek, but his tournament is not over. We are going to play 8 rounds.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I probably Steel Leaf champion strategies would not be on the top of my list of the decks that I want to face as Arclight Phoenix, in all honesty. So
That seems like a tough matchup in general. You base your strategy
Not-
around
not
blocking
a-
with 1/1s.
yes, not a strategy that I would heavily expect to face at this tournament. But as we said, the metagame is fairly open. There are a lot of decks that are playable. There are a lot of decks that are almost playable, on the verge of being tier 1 or tier 2. And Steel Leaf Champion has proved to be strong for a long time. Before War of the Spark, before Guilds of Ravnica, it was a really strong card at some points, format defining. So
All right. So we are going to get our winner, Tobias, to talk to us for a second, and we are going to see you after this short break. So stay tuned.